Hey there, welcome to day 3 of RTV Daily, where we'll be chronicling all of the happenings of the major international tournaments this summer. Special mention to the suggestion of calling it Adrian Summer Tour. I like that, but it's a little too Adrian-centric for my liking, but it can be the subheading of the show. Does that sound good? Okay, let's go. Copa America is up first. Peru versus Bolivia was the first match of the day yesterday, and Bolivia actually looked quite good value in the first half. They were awarded a penalty for a handball in the 26th minute, and Marcelo Moreno converted from the spot to give the Bolivians the lead. But with the Peruvian legend Paulo Guerrero on the pitch, that backline wasn't safe for long, and after rounding the keeper, Guerrero made it 1-1. What a great ball through from Christian Cueva, by the way. So, now the question was, could Bolivia hold it together in the second half? Well, their record in Copa America matches in which they have scored first sort of spoke for itself, having not lost a match when they opened the scoring since 1959. Shout out to Opta for that stat. Mind you, they've only opened the scoring 18 times since 1959, so there's that. But an even bigger shout out to Peru for snapping that unbeaten Bolivian run. In the second half, Guerrero and Peru really poured it on, and goal scorer turned provider when Guerrero picked out the head of Farfan, of all people, to make it 2-1. And finally, in the 96th minute, and I missed this goal because I had to go and play myself, but in the 96th, once again, goal scorer turned provider, and this time it was Farfan setting up Edison Flores. Great through ball from Farfan, a couple of pump fakes from Flores as he stepped around the sprawling defenders and keeper and dinked it over Lampe. 3-1 Peru. Now, Brazil versus Venezuela was the other match in Group A as the hosts looked to secure their place in the round of 16 with a victory. Richarlison, Neres, and Firmino in the attack, Coutinho, Artur, and Casemiro in the midfield. You'd think that Brazil had more than enough firepower and just strength in general to navigate Venezuela. In other words, you'd expect Fariñas to be a busy boy in this one, as he was against Peru. Venezuela made it harder for themselves by being sloppy in possession in their own half, which made for a few chances, but the Brazilian finishing just wasn't on. Again, they look off. In fact, Venezuela came close through Solomon Rondon in the first half, who just headed wide past Alisson after beating Marquinhos in the air, but that was their most meaningful chance. This match was a frustrating one for both teams, but mostly for Brazil, highlighted by Firmino's disallowed goal in the first half and Gabriel Jesus tripping up in the 6-yard box in the second half. It ended 0-0, so a massive point for Venezuela, who now just need to beat Bolivia, and they'll have an incredible shot at going through. They're on 2 points, with Brazil and Peru both on 4 and facing each other in the next match. It's going to be interesting. Remember, third place teams make it through. But there's just something off with Brazil. I mean, I guess the loss of Neymar is massive because we all know how Neymar typically, not always, but usually plays better with Brazil than he does with his club. But also this home advantage, it doesn't even seem to make a difference because nobody can afford to attend the matches. So it makes for these cavernous, strange atmospheres for the players. It's a weird tournament so far, man. And the weird tournament continues today, of course, as we have what should be a couple of good matches. I'm most looking forward to Qatar versus Colombia. Qatar got off to a slow start against Paraguay and they paid for it, but we're creating tons of chances, which is always promising. While Colombia, of course, beat Argentina 2-0 in their opener and are looking quite strong. Paraguay versus Argentina, Paraguay doesn't have the quality that Colombia does, so it will be very hard for them to replicate what Colombia did. And while Argentina is impossible to get a read on these days, you would expect them to beat Paraguay? Maybe? Yes? Let's go with yes. Okay, Women's World Cup now, Brazil versus Italy, and Brazil dominated early with them finding plenty of joy from set pieces in that first half. Debinho almost scored the goal of the tournament with a nice little heel flick that forced a great save from Giuliani in goal. This was probably the best I've seen from Brazil this tournament, as they had a bit of a slow start in France, but have come into their game much better now. Italy, well, they were against the ropes for much of the first 25 minutes or so and relied on long balls over the top of the Brazilian midfield, but in the moments that they settled the ball, passed it around, they looked good and would have been ahead had Girelli not been flagged for offside. Girelli definitely looked like the biggest threat for Italy, at least in the first half. In fact, despite Brazil perhaps having more opportunities, Italy came close as well, with Barbara perhaps a bit fortunate to have a strike directed straight at her. That could have been 1-0 Italy there. In the second half, Brazil again was dangerous from set pieces, this time Andressinha rattling a free kick off of the crossbar. Andressinha and Marta were quite impressive with their delivery, and Brazil in general were the much stronger side as the match went on. Italy knew that a draw, or even a loss, could get them into first, and seemingly employed some tactics to not lose instead of going for the win. Then, in the 72nd minute, Elena Linari gave up a penalty that Brazilian legend Marta was all too happy to convert, and broke a record in the process. Marta has now scored the most World Cup goals in history, period. More than any other man or woman, surpassing Miroslav Klose for the record. Marta has 17, Klose 16, and Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, on 15. So in the end, while Italy defended fairly well for the most part, their slightly negative tactics came back to bite them. When they tried to push the ball forward and create opportunities, they did manage to create some fairly decent ones. I mean, if not for an offside and Barbara being in the right place at the right time, they would have scored. Fortune favors the bold though, so Brazil got what they deserved with the 1-0 win. One thing that really bothered me though is how referees are now cracking down on keepers coming off of their lines for penalties, but why not the encroachment by players? Look at this. Once again, as with almost every penalty, and despite it being illegal, there were 3 Brazilian players in the box before Marta even struck the ball. The picking and choosing of which laws to enforce and which to let go makes for some frustrating, extremely unfair moments in the tournaments like this. Now in the other match, which was almost a guaranteed win for Australia as Jamaica were both winless and goalless coming into it, the Australians expectedly took over. Well, one Australian in particular, as Sam Kerr scored 4 goals from 9 shots. She was Nicole McClure's worst nightmare with 7 shots on target and just 2 misses, as Sam Kerr became the first Australian to score a hat-trick at a World Cup. Jamaica did manage to get a goal of their own, basically their only consolation at this World Cup, as they finished their campaign with 3 losses, 1 goal scored, and 12 conceded. But hey, at least that goal was a historic one, as it was Jamaica's first at a Women's World Cup, and they really stole the hearts of the people watching it, man. They radiated positive energy, aligned the World Cup chakras. Vibes were chill. I'm gonna stop. Let's look to those standings now, as it was a weird day in Group C. So despite Italy losing, they still managed to stay in first thanks to their incredible defensive record. Marta's winner was just the 2nd goal they had conceded in the tournament, making for a +5 goal difference. Coming into the final match day of Group C, Brazil was in 2nd while Australia was in 3rd. So again, despite Brazil winning, they actually dropped in the standings to 3rd place. They had an equal amount of points and goal difference, but scored less than the Australians. Italy will play the 3rd place team from Group A, B, or F, while our first officially scheduled round of 16 matchup will see Norway taking on Australia. From what I've seen, it should be a pretty even match. Today's matches will see Japan take on England, while Scotland take on Argentina. All of these teams are still alive, though Scotland would need a few results to go their way in order to advance in 3rd. A win for them, among other results from other groups. And finally, let's take a look at what happened in the Gold Cup. The earlier kickoff saw Panama and Trinidad and Tobago face off in Group D. The first bits of Group D action, actually, and the first half was a bit of a stinker, but the constant throughout the entire match, but even more emphatically in the second half, was the theme of Panama being the much better side. Marvin Phillips was a very busy man in the TNT goal, while Luis Mejia didn't have to make a single save. In the 53rd minute, Gabriel Torres played a perfectly weighted through ball to Amrando Cooper, who rounded the keeper and slotted it from a fairly acute angle. For sure not obtuse. Thought the keeper went down a little too early. He'll probably be disappointed in that one, but overall, not a howler. Not obtuse, not a howler. However, there was absolutely nothing the keeper could do about the second goal, as he first saved a strike that was earmarked for the corner, then a banger from Edgar Baraqueñas, and he got a hand to Baraqueñas' rebound, but couldn't keep it out. 2-0 Panama, and you got to feel for the keeper, man. 3 strikes on goal in the matter of seconds. Rough. And that was the final score, by the way. The US men's national team finally made their debut against Guyana, and I mean, come on. Of course they beat Guyana. It's a team that's ranked 177th in the world. The first half was frustrating for the Americans as they buzzed around Guyana, but weren't at their best, or at least up to the standards that they probably expected themselves. They did go 1-0 up in the 28th minute when Weston McKennie rolled the ball inside to Paul Arriola, who in turn rolled the ball past the keeper. In the second half, the US would have been much happier with their performance, despite being a little bit sloppy with their possession at times, something they won't be able to do when they come up against a team like Costa Rica, Mexico, you know, the powerhouses like Canada, etc. But despite some sloppy possession, they still managed to score 3 goals in the second half, with Giassi Zardes' goal being the pick of the bunch as the ball was headed directly at his own head by the Guyanese defender, and the keeper didn't have a chance. Pretty funny goal. Add a brace from Tyler Boyd into the mix, he could have had a hat trick, actually, and you have a relatively easy 4-0 win for the States. Bish, bash, bosh. Perfect performance. No, but they still scored 4 and kept a clean sheet, but against Guyana, we have to keep our expectations in check here, folks. Just like I'm keeping mine in check today when Canada takes on Mexico. Should be fun. Then in the other match, you have Cuba versus Martinique, which is definitely not a match that people will be clamoring to see, but it's happening. And I'll tell you what happens in it. Alright guys, that's it from me here at RTV Daily / Adrian Summer Tour. As always, if you're new, then a subscription is appreciated, a like is loved. What? And I'll see you tomorrow. Should be a double upload coming your way soon. Maybe today? Maybe tomorrow. Okay, bye.